Certainly a tough one for your team on Saturday game. You guys battled really well with Towson all day and come up a little short in the end, 36-19. Just give me your impressions on the game and what happened.
Yeah, I thought we came out um, fast in the first half offensively. We scored on the first play. They came down and scored to match us, missed the extra point there. First half, we scored on the first play of the half and the last play of the half offensively, which is not ideal. There were times in between where we suffered some missed assignments offensively, one of which probably would have led to a touchdown. But we didn't tackle particularly well in the first half. In the second half, we came out and thought we were much better on defense, kind of giving the offense more possessions, but we're just still too inconsistent offensively. And then field position kind of got to us with special teams. We were buried down on that other end for most of the second half, and we struggle mightily to get out of those situations right now. And kind of Towson kind of overwhelmed us at the end. So, got our work cut out for us this week with this opponent. But I'm still proud of how our guys continue to battle. At one point in the game last week, I looked over and the starting 4 D linemen and starting 3 linebackers from the Iowa game were standing next to me on the sideline while we were on defense. And, it is what it is. College football is a brutal game. It's a contact sport. These things happen. But, you look at that, you just kind of look down for a minute.
Yeah.
Like, okay, can one of you guys get off your scooter and go make a tackle? But that ain't going to be the case.
You touched on the first play of the game, 50-yard touchdown pass to LaSalle Rose Jr. Was that something that you guys saw on film coming into the game, or just a great play, on the throw and catch?
Well, I mean, it's always something you see on film. When I got here to Albany, there was an acronym called a CWAP, CWAP, and it stands for call with a purpose. And I looked at the guys and they asked me if the play was a CWAP, and I said every play calls a CWAP. You call every play with a purpose. So there was something we saw on film, and we had the right pieces in the right places at the right time that worked out for us.
We haven't talked a lot about it, but Aiden Semo, your reserve quarterback, with another rushing touchdown. I think it's his 5th game this season with one. What makes it so effective being able to use him down the goal line in that package that you do?
Aiden's a really, really smart player. So, it's like having a computer out there, understanding how blocking schemes should work out. And to his credit, he's been a lot more right than he has been wrong. In the Bryant game, his first carry, he missed a big one and still beats himself up for it. But he's a really intense dude. We call him Sergeant Semo. He's always got an intense nature about him, and he loves the role he's playing right now. And it's just another example of guys sacrificing positions on this team that they might not be best suited for. Aiden's a quarterback by trade, and he's adopted this role as a hard hat for us. So he continues to reap the rewards of his work, and we're going to keep feeding into that.
Defensively, which has been a strong point all year, you guys were pretty solid. It held Towson to 339 yards, forced a couple of fumbles. What were you able to do effectively on that side of the ball?
Towson does a really good job before the snap, maneuvering their formations and shifting and motioning. And we kind of just calmed ourselves down in the second half and, locked in our keys and made sure, we had edges to the defense and we were going to tackle the ball when we got to it. And, we were better in coverage as well in the second half. So all those things kind of led to, more opportunities. And we were once again lucky, we created a turnover, scored a touchdown. We've been doing that the last couple of weeks. And if we can continue to do that through this last game, it'll build into the offseason for us.
Couple of guys with 10 tackles. Chris Gales, who we've talked about a lot over the last few weeks, another big game, 10 tackles, 1.5 sacks, a forced fumble. And then Troy Berschwinger, 10 tackles, and recovered one of those fumbles. Just talk about those guys' afternoons.
Yeah, I mean, they both continue to get better. And, as every coach on here will tell you, you want to grow through the season. And our rate of growth has not been the same as some of the other teams. However, we are continuing to get better week in, week out with different pieces and parts. And, Troy's played a lot of snaps as a reserve linebacker, and he's had to, get into a starting role now. And Chris has played on all 3 levels of our defense and starting to get it. And, they're both unique kids. They're not bought in, they're believed in. When you're bought in, you can sell out what they believe in. And they're definitely, setting the tone for what's to come here.
Obviously, a big challenge on Saturday with a trip to Monmouth. As a connoisseur and offensive guy, when you see what they're able to do, what impresses you most about their attack?
I mean, I don't remember the last time, and correct me if I'm mistaken, they're the number 1 rushing offense in this conference. I believe they're the number one passing offense in this conference. I'm scrolling up these things you send me every Sunday and Monday. But yeah, I mean that type of dynamic offense is why people love the game of football. And they got speed on the outside, they got speed in the backfield, they got a great O line. Frankie Weaver, a good council kid, has popped up and started playing really solid ball at quarterback. And he's shown the right that he can be a starting quarterback in this conference over the weeks in which he started. So, as a football connoisseur, yeah, I love watching that offense. As the coach who's about to play him, I have my concerns, but we're going to prepare like we do each week, and try to mitigate whatever damage they can do.
What you've been around the conference a while. Do you remember a team that can hurt you so much with the pass and the run?
Yeah, not in a long time. Typically people fall to one side or the other, but they've been able to stay like right on that fulcrum of being just as dangerous in the run as the pass. And that presents a whole nother level of problems for defensive football, just because you can't really hone in and say, I'm going to stop this because then they'll do this, so it curates a problem. No, I don't remember anybody who's been this dynamic on both phases of offense. And, credit to Coach Cal and his staff. And, they've created this through how they've built it since they've joined the CAA. And they were methodical about it. And I like the blueprint they've laid for their program.
For you, in year one, obviously there's been a lot of frustrations. The injuries being number one that you touched about, and all those guys on the sideline. But what are your takeaways from this season? What are you most proud of the way you guys have accomplished?
Just how guys are believing into what we're trying to build. We don't sit there and look at the problems that we've had, with the injuries, and the guys exiting the program through the portal and things like that. Our roster has completely just bought into each other, and it's amazing. You go on Sunday with the season we've had, and you expect to see a bunch of guys who are down on their luck and questioning things, and they don't. They just wipe it clean and they go back to work and they try to put their best foot forward for the next week. And that's why I have faith and belief and optimism that moving forward we're gonna put this program back on track, because of that. We've laid a foundation, I've been saying for weeks, and you just can't see it. It's subsurface. These kids are making selfless, sacrificed, attempts to be in positions or play roles that they might not be accustomed to or might not benefit them. And that just kind of shows you how strong the foundation is and where the culture is going. So a lot of faith in that, Rob. A lot of belief in that. And I'm proud of it.
And so that being said, what's the priority for you to the off season to try to get this program to where you'd like to see it get?
Yeah, I mean, we have a big high school recruiting class right now, which I'm excited. I won't see those guys till summer, but we return a lot of guys, and there's a couple key positions we're going to have to, find in the portal, as most people do. But as we build it out, I don't want to like live in that world where it's a drywall patch fill of a transfer guy each year because it's just a reoccurring cycle. You want to build the thing from the ground up and create your depth from freshman class moving forward, and then develop those guys. So the development of this offseason is going to be paramount. We got to get stronger. We got to get healthy. We got to add a couple guys, and then we got to keep believing into this culture we're building and have a really, really active, intense offseason.
All right, Jared. Thanks for your time today, and I'll